In the northern Netherlands, two languages stand out, West Frisian and the Gronings variety of Low Saxon. They are neighbours, they're related, and they've shaped each other in a few ways that most speakers of the languages don't realise. Today we are exploring what makes them unique and how Frisian left a lasting mark on the Gronings variety of Low Saxon, as well as East Frisian, but we're not gonna get into East Frisian today. West Frisian is not a dialect of Dutch. For any Dutchies who still think that, you are kind of ignorant, sorry, and that is very much the fault of the Dutch government because they can't teach this stuff properly because they still have got a little bit of nationalism root in there, which isn't always bad, but in this case they just use it to destroy their Saxon and Frisian. Anyway, a bit of a tangent. West Frisian is not a dialect of Dutch, like I said. It is a fully recognized language. It is under the European Charter for Minority Languages, and it is spoken West Frisian in the Dutch province of Friesland, and a bit of possibly and very probably there is a small community or few small communities in the very west of the province of Grun in Low Saxon, or the official name, which is still in Dutch, which needs to be changed, like the name of Friesland, which officially is called Friesland. Some few words that are close to English, because of course both Low Saxon and Frisian are of the Ingvaeonic branch, along with Scots and English and a few other languages. But Frisian, Scots, and English and all the languages that come from English are in the Anglo-Frisian branch, and you can really see that they're very close to each other because, of course, you've got Brea, which is bread, you've got Hus, which is house, you've got Cius, or Cis, which is cheese. Um, I mean, if I can find the saying, the famous Frisian saying, I'll put it on the screen. And Frisian has deep historical roots within the Middle Ages, Frisian being spoken along much of the northern North Sea coast. Um, in the early Middle Ages, I believe it was spoken from Flanders all the way up into Riostriingen and into like Buchadingen, which you can search up on maps. Um, it was also spoken by the Frisian freedom of the Friese Vrijheid, which gathered in a now Low Saxon speaking area, being Aurich in the official German name, once again colonial names, but by both, I believe both also the Low Saxon, but also the Frisians, it's called Aurich, of which the nationalistic group, the group van Aurich, the group of Aurich is named. Now, Grönnegs is a variety of Low Saxon spoken throughout the province of Groningen, or Groningen. It shares roots with Saxon varieties like everywhere, but it is closest to East Frisian because they are both Frieso-Saxon. Now, on the screen right now, I have a few sound changes compared to Dutch and other Low Saxon. And this is like the most typical stuff. This is what kind of sets it apart, along with another bit which we are going to get into now. Historically, large parts of Grun were Frisian speaking, and when Saxon varieties spread, Frisian didn't fully disappear, kind of left a few good traces, with the biggest one being the fact that in Frisian, the vowel, but most of the time only the vowel of you, the singular, do, can attach directly to the verb. Gronings does the same. I believe East Frisian does it too, with you go being du geist, but are you going, which you say like go you being geist. In Frisian, this would be gainstor or something like that. Um, and this fused verb pronoun form is, of course, a clear sign of Frisian influence on Gronings. This influence is the strongest in the western part of Grun, where Frisian remained a bit longer, um, the Frisian House of Nassau Diets, which is this northern branch, um, also had a lot of members there, so Frisian society had a stronger influence on there for longer. Now let's talk about the Dutch government doing Dutch government things. For a long time, Low Saxon varieties, including grönnegs, were treated as incorrect or inferior by Dutch authorities. Throughout the 19th and went into the 20th century, many children in Grön, Drenthe, Overijssel, and Friesland were punished in school for speaking their own language, whether Low Saxon or Frisian. Teachers often hit children, scolded them, or humiliated them for speaking their language instead of the colonial Dutch. Both Frisian and Low Saxon um, had this repression, but Frisian includes basically full rights. They can speak to authorities, so in court in Frisian, they have bilingual signage, they have full legal protection, Part 3 of the European Charter for Minority Languages, and incredibly strong financial support. Low Saxon, however, has none of these rights. The Dutch government recognises it symbolically and promised to do a lot more back in 2018, but they have not followed up with anything. They have done absolutely nothing. Low Saxon is not allowed in courts. Well, you're not going to get punished for speaking it in courts, but you're not legally allowed to speak to the authorities in it. The authorities don't have to speak it with you. And in classic Dutch government fashion, they're too stingy to pay for anything, including fixing the mess they created by decades of their own possibly genocidal language policies. If there's one thing the Dutch government likes more than bureaucracy, it's saving money by not dealing with the consequences of its own decisions. So, despite the documented history of punishment and discrimination, the Dutch government has never fully acknowledged or taken proper accountability for the harm done to generations of Low Saxon and Frisian speaking children and just speakers. They also used a law which didn't allow advertisements to be in anything but Dutch to justify taking people to court for having it in any way publicly, when they just expanded the law when you weren't allowed to do that, but they were just cheating it into the system. Once again, unacceptable discrimination and unlawful acts. Now, not everything is doom and gloom. Across the north and east, people are working hard to protect and revitalize both Frisian and grönnegs. One example is the Frisian Groep van Auwerk, a Frisian cultural and linguistic organization across Friesland and beyond. They promote Frisian language rights, publish materials, organize cultural events, support communities, and work to strengthen Frisian identity and visibility throughout the region. They were able to successfully petition the European Union to recognize Frisian as a different nationality. Another grassroots movement is Jonge Sassen, a protest group dedicated to strengthening Low Saxon visibility. They place Low Saxon place name stickers on town and village signs, especially in Grön and Overijssel, where they have done actions. I'll put a picture of it on the screen if I can find it. They do this as a playful but powerful reminder that Low Saxon belongs in a public space just as much as Dutch or Frisian. And in the city of Grön, the Rijksuniversiteit Groningen, or in Gronings, Rijksuniversiteit Grön, plays a major role too. The university supports both Frisian and Low Saxon through the CGTC, the Center for Gronings Language and Culture, the Friese Academy, which partners a lot with it. The Friese Academy is, I believe, based in Ljouwert or Leeuwarden in Frisia itself. And there are big research projects like the projects of Martijn Wieling or Martijn Weining. I don't know exactly what he's called, but he is developing some cool stuff. So while the Dutch government is being the Dutch government, the people and institutions are doing the work anyway. Now we have a big rivalry between the Frisians and the Groningers, which kind of goes both ways. The Groningers are most of the times on the attack though, which I find very funny. Scheer is Gronings Frisian. Sorry guys, I had to include that. I basically said Scheerbunsdag or Scheermonnigoog is ours is now because due to some geology and cool stuff, the islands of the Vat Sea are physically shifting to the east. So Scheerbunsdag is now and will soon be like on the Groninger coast, on the coast of Grun. So then we'll just take it. Anyways, let's continue. So if you think West Frisians and people from Grun argue today, well, the Saxons and Frisians have been fighting since before the time of Charlemagne, before anyone even called themselves a Grunniger. They were already busy discussing, which is a polite way of saying they fought every Tuesday. Tuesday being named after one of their gods. I just thought I'd throw in a fun fact. Frisians claimed the Saxons were too stubborn, which the Frisians are. Saxons claimed the Frisians were too loud, which the Frisians are. And everyone claimed the neighbours were definitely wrong about everything. Now, speaking of Charlemagne, I'll show you the Hellion now. During Charlemagne's reign and the decades after, the Carolingian Empire tried to convert the Saxons to Christianity, sometimes peacefully, sometimes very much not. Massacre of Verden. To help with this, monks and scholars produced texts in the Saxon's own language, including one of the most remarkable works of the early Middle Ages, the Hellion. Written around 830, the Hellion retells the story of the New Testament as if Christ was a heroic Saxon chieftain. It blends Christian teachings with Saxon poetic tradition, making it easier for newly conquered Saxons to accept the Christian faith. I'll give you the Old Saxon text and then the English translation. Managa uarum vesierum od gespon vat sia bigunun or godes rakein vat kironi vat feurikeo Christ under manconia mariva gifromana mit ordon and mit orgon. It might be possible that those U's are pronounced as W's, but I don't care. There were many people who gathered their courage to speak about the secret that the power of Christ has worked wonders among humankind with words and with deeds. Now, that was it for today. I'll also show the Gronings and West Frisian translations of this text. The next video will be about the defrisifying of the formerly Frisian areas that have turned into Low Saxon areas.